Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. My guest today is the legendary Taylor Schulte, CFP, who is the founder of Define Financial, a retirement and tax planning firm with over $200 million in assets under management. In addition, Taylor is the co-founder of the AGC community, co-host of Kitsy Summit, and host of two Apple Top 100 podcasts, the Stay Wealthy Retirement Show and Experiments in Advisor Marketing. In this conversation, Taylor talks about the giant learning curve it takes to go from working for a wirehouse financial planning firm to wearing all the hats you have to wear as a business owner, including the marketing hat. Now, for Taylor, that's a hat he has come to really embrace and enjoy. And if you haven't yet listened to his podcast, Experiments in Advisor Marketing, I cannot plug this podcast enough. He shares some really, really great stuff and gives lots of valuable peeks behind the curtain into his own firm, Define Financial. Now, Taylor's firm, rather than leaning on social media as their main marketing platform, like many of my other guests on here, they actually leverage SEO to build their audience and drive traffic to their website. And it just so happens that they do that really, really well. This episode is a must listen for anyone who either has a blog, has an aversion or time constraint against posting on social media platforms every day ad nauseum, or just wants to hear some alternative ways of expanding their thought leadership and building in long-term successful strategies into their marketing repertoire. So let's dive in. All right, Taylor, thank you so much for joining me today on the Finance Marketing Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm still working through my first cup of coffee here on the West Coast, but I'm excited to join you today.
So am I. Mostly everyone that I interview happens to be on the East Coast, so they're like a few hours ahead of me, but I'm on Mountain Time, so it's very much still waking up over here.
Exactly. Yeah, there are always a few cups of coffee ahead.
Exactly. So Taylor, I would love to dive in, and if you could just share with our listeners who you are, what it is you do, how you got into financial planning, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, well, the short of it is, I kind of stumbled my way into this profession. Unlike a lot of the younger folks that I talk to, they're very intentional about, I want to be a financial planner and I want to get my CFP and I want to work for a fee-only firm. And I really had no idea what a financial advisor was. I knew that I wanted to work in finance. I just didn't know what that meant. So I don't know. I just always told myself, like, I'm going to work in finance. And ultimately, I landed a job at Morgan Stanley in San Diego as a financial advisor. And this was still like at the very end of like old school Wall Street, where I joined the financial advisor training program. I was given a cubicle and a phone and a computer. I was sent to New York for sales training. I was told to meet a certain sales quota or I was going to lose my job. And that's how I got started. And luckily, I did fairly well. I battled through 08, 09, which was challenging. And I just really fell in love with the profession and started to learn more about the different sides of the profession, that you didn't have to work at a wirehouse and be a broker, that you could be an investment advisor and get paid for, delivering financial advice. And there was this whole independent side. And so ultimately I was at Morgan Stanley for 5 or 6 years and decided that I wanted to do things my way. And I left and I started my firm in 2014. There's a few things that happened in between there, leaving Morgan and starting my firm. But ultimately I started my firm in 2014. And the rest is history. It's been a giant learning curve to learn how to be a business owner as well as continue to be a financial planner. But it's been a lot of fun. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Well, it sounds like you're coming up on, or maybe you've already reached your 10-year anniversary with your firm. Is that right?
Yeah, it'll be May of this year will be the 10-year anniversary for the firm. And yeah, I've been at it a lot longer than that, but the firm will be 10 years old. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So take me back to those early years when you're just learning what it is to be a business owner in addition to being a financial advisor. What were some of the new hats that you had to wear that you weren't maybe expecting?
Well, it's every hat. And I think it's such an important conversation it was something that was never really talked about when I was considering this jump to being a business owner. At the time when I was making the jump, the conversations were all about more freedom, less compliance, less of a headache, and then also more money. You know, Morgan Stanley's taking 70% of the revenue that I'm generating. It just seemed like a lot. And so a lot of the conversations back then were, well, you could go to the independent side or go start your own firm and you'll have more freedom and you can make more money. But the one thing that wasn't talked about is the giant difference between being a business owner and being a financial planner all at the same time. And I think I know that every profession, every job has the same challenge. I always share the story about this guy that used to cut my hair. He's one of those like hipster barber guys, and he was working for this famous barbershop in San Diego, and he had this huge cult following, and people would wait in line to go get their hair cut by this guy. And he decided, well, I'm bringing in so much business to this barbershop, I'm going to go start my own barbershop. And he goes and starts his own barbershop, and of course all of his clients follow him, and then he realizes he can't keep up, that he can't be this business owner and this phenomenal barber at the same time. He's like answering the phone while he's cutting your hair, and he's dealing with his landlord and all these issues. And long story short, he ended up going back to that same barbershop and shutting down his firm. And so I think it's the same way with us, where all of a sudden, like, you're doing all these other things from legal and compliance and hiring and firing and, you know, making all the day-to-day decisions, and the internet's out and the phones are broken, and it's a lot. On paper, it doesn't look like a lot, but when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to do all of that and then also try and grow your firm and also try to do really good work for your existing clients. So it truly is everything. And you just get to this point where you can't do it all. You kind of have to decide, like, do I want to step into this business owner CEO role and hire really good people? Or do I want to be a financial planner all day long and either hire a CEO to handle the operations for me, or again, maybe just being a business owner isn't for me. So I think it's a really important conversation to think through. I know it always sounds good on paper, like, I'm going to go start my own firm and do whatever I want and, like, you know, have a lot of fun. And it is fun, but you know, the challenging side of being a business owner, I think, is rarely talked about.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. There is so much extra stuff that has to happen behind the scenes for your
Yeah.
business to actually run. So let's shift a little bit into the marketing hat that you,
Yeah.
I'm sure, had to wear, and perhaps still do wear. Were you prepared for that hat, or did that hat come as a surprise to you?
It was my favorite hat, and I couldn't wait to wear that hat with fewer restrictions. One of the last things I remember at Morgan Stanley that really pushed me over the edge was I came into work one day and my LinkedIn profile was printed out on my desk with red marker all over it, telling me what to, like, get rid of and change. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, you know, I'm a young 20 something, like, trying to grow in this profession, and I can't really, you know, put anything online. So I'm a marketing nerd at heart, and I really wanted to do some creative things on the marketing side, and I was really restricted. So that was the one thing I couldn't wait to do. Now, the flip side of that is you have so much freedom that it can kind of get you into trouble, where you're like doing all these sort of things and there's no strategy behind it, and you're throwing spaghetti at the wall, and it's fun and you're having some wins here and there, but it's not sustainable. It's not systematized. And so I went a little too far down that path. I was fortunate that I had existing clients, so I had existing revenue. My wife was working to help support our family, so I had extra cash flow to throw at these different marketing projects. I'm sure we'll get into, you know, my retirement podcast that's responsible for a lot of our growth. But when I first started my podcast, I thought I could just throw money at this thing and didn't have to do much. So I paid $6,000 to this podcast company to start my podcast and do all the creative for me. And, you know, to no surprise, like, it didn't go very well because I didn't put in the hard work. I didn't have the strategy behind it. So in the early days, it was like a lot of fun and trying different things. I have this newfound freedom and I've got some extra cash flow to throw at marketing projects. But, you know, sure, I had some success. It just wasn't sustainable success. It wasn't systematized. It wasn't predictable. So I really did lean into it. I learned a lot from it. And now we're in a really good place with marketing. And that's essentially my full-time job now, is to just ensure that we continue to grow the right way through the marketing system that I've developed.
Well, I would really love to kind of dive in, if we can go back kind of through those 10 years, and you can tell
Yeah.
me about what are the things that you tried and what are the things that didn't end up working out, and what did you end up keeping from what you learned, and all of that stuff.
Yeah. I think we've kept most things. It's just things are implemented with more intention. So, instead of just having a podcast that speaks to everyone, now it's a very nerdy retirement tax focused podcast. It's very catered to a very specific type of audience, i.e. our ideal client. So it wasn't until I started to get really focused on who are we talking to, who's our ideal client, what are their pain points, and then how can we create content for them. It's like, why am I posting things on Twitter about the benefits of Roth conversions when everybody on Twitter is young and in tech, or they're my peers in the financial profession? Like, why am I spending time here? So it was like, okay, well, if I want to be on social media, maybe I should post where my ideal clients are. So maybe Facebook would be more appropriate than spending time on Twitter. So a lot of little decisions like that, where it's essentially the same thing. It's just more intentional about the content we're creating, who it's for, where we're publishing things. We've experimented with a lot of crazy, weird things. I host a podcast for advisors called Experiments in Advisor Marketing. And a lot of this crazy, weird stuff has been documented on that podcast. So there's some things that we've just had fun with and tried in the past that is not something we still do today. But happy to share more about kind of the components of our marketing today. But it's largely the same, just more narrow and more focused.
More intentional. Okay. Yeah. I have so many follow-up questions. I'm trying to figure out where I want to start because I want to talk about experiments in advisor marketing. I can't wait to listen to it. So do you still post on Facebook? Is that where your target market is?
Our target market is there, but we don't really do much social media today. We've never really relied on social media.
Okay. So in lieu of social media, because I see social media as kind of the easiest free way to grow your audience. So what do you do in lieu of social media? I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't think it matters. Like, I don't think that the platform matters. In other words, it could be writing a book. It could be publishing on social media. It could be starting a podcast. It could be a YouTube channel. I joke, you could hand write your newsletter and snail mail it to your target demographic, and you'd probably still have success. So I don't think the thing really matters. I think what matters the most, especially when you're getting started, is choosing one thing. You can't do it all. You can't start an amazing podcast and a YouTube channel and a blog all at the same time and execute them really, really well. So I think most important is just choosing one thing. So if it's like, all right, I love social media, that's really, where I want to spend my time on the marketing side of things. And then just own that platform. If it's Facebook, learn everything you possibly can about Facebook, how to reach your ideal client, how to do it in the most effective way, and just go all in on Facebook. And once you start to have success with that thing on that platform, it starts to become really easy to duplicate that onto other platforms. Once you have a very successful podcast and you've got systems and processes and you've got an audience, it becomes really easy for me to go and then start a YouTube channel and invite my existing audience to come to my YouTube channel. And now I've got systems and processes to repurpose my content and systematize things. And so I think the mistake we have to make is just trying to do all these things. So social media is great. And I'm sure there'll come a time everything else is firing on all cylinders. What more can we be doing? Let's put some energy into social media and start to build up that platform.
So where is most of your energy spent? Is it on the podcasts?
Yeah, most of my energy is spent, I'd probably say, in 3 different places now, and they all kind of work together to support each other. One is SEO, search engine optimization. 2 is the retirement podcast, the Stay Wealthy Retirement Show. And then 3 is our email newsletter. So again, they all kind of work the same. One example of them kind of working together is search engine optimization. We have a blog post on Medicare IRMA that gets a good amount of organic traffic. When people show up from Google to read this blog post, they're hit with a pop-up to join my email newsletter. When they join my email newsletter, the very first confirmation email they get is inviting them to listen to the Stay Wealthy Retirement Show, to the podcast. So they join my email, but then I'm like, hey, check out this podcast. So now I'm getting them into not only my email ecosystem, but also inviting them to subscribe to the podcast. So starting to build trust with them in a couple of different ways. So now I'm nurturing them through my email list, through weekly emails. They're also hopefully subscribed and listening to the podcast. And then we've got call to actions to move them from what I would call that kind of middle of the funnel to the bottom of our funnel. So SEO has been really powerful for us. But I think the mistake people make with SEO is thinking search engine optimization, if I do it right, will equal a lot of prospects and clients.
Right.
But SEO is this top of funnel strategy that helps me build my middle of the funnel. And that middle of the funnel is really what's most powerful. So I use SEO to get in front of more of my ideal people and invite them into these different middle of the funnel activities, i.e., the email newsletter and the podcast.
I think that's so smart. Well, SEO is one of my favorite topics to talk about, and I actually haven't had anyone on the podcast yet who uses SEO. So I would love to ask you a
Yeah,
little bit about
please.
your strategy for SEO. How do you employ SEO in your firm?
Yeah, I wrote two really in-depth articles for kitsis.com that we can link to in your show notes if you'd like. I
Yep.
think they're really good places to start. I tried to provide kind of the basic framework for what I call like a nailing down the basics of SEO. I think just about everybody, I don't encourage financial planners to go and spend their time doing this stuff. Ideally, you would go and pay someone to help you. But I do think there's something to be said about kind of understanding the basics of these things and implementing them on your own before you go and like delegate and hire somebody. So those two articles I think are really helpful in just nailing down the basics of SEO and just getting that foundation laid. And then from there, I think what's really most important these days is quality over quantity. Rewind 10 years ago, and in the SEO world, it was who can produce the most content. The blogs, there's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of blog posts. Quantity seemed to win back then. Also, there's a lot of, I don't know, unethical tactics to try and grow your audience through SEO. Those things have all been kind of worked through with the Google algorithm, and they'll punish you more than they'll help you these days. So I kind of love where the world of SEO is right now, which is just create better content than the other person next to you.
Yeah.
And it's not so much like I know more than the other person. It's just I can create the content in a way that is more easily consumed by my ideal reader, right? It creates a better user experience. It's more easily digestible. And so I think if you focus on quality over quantity, SEO becomes really, really simple. But it's not, there's no shortcut. Like it's a really time consuming task. I mean, that one single Medicare IRMA post, I probably spent $3,000 on a writer to help kind of bring the post to life. And then I probably spent 20 hours of my own time rewriting, moving things, adding different media components, images, just constantly cleaning things up, different headlines, links, and just that one single article has driven, six figures, like hundreds of thousands of visitors to the website. So I didn't need to write 50 articles to get traffic. I just need to write and focus on one amazing piece of content. The key here is that piece of content caters to my ideal client. So I know that taxes are a pain point for my ideal client. One of those taxes is Medicare IRMA. So people showing up, Googling Medicare IRMA, like I'm capturing my ideal client. Also, I think something to take note of there is I didn't write a blog post about what is a Roth conversion, right? Or what is a 401k, like that sort of stuff. I'm never going to be able to compete with. The Investopedias of the world have cornered that side of the market. So I would encourage people to think a little bit more specific than just, the broad general terms. So, taxes is a big one. Well, what sort of taxes? And then what's that, like the kind of unknown pesky little taxes that no one really talks about that we can really nerd out on and provide a really good resource on. So I know I'm not like directly answering your question. SEO is just one of those things I think is highly misunderstood. And I think most people are looking for a shortcut. And unfortunately, there's a lot of vendors out there like, pay me $5,000 and I'll get you all this traffic to your website. But remember too, that you care about quality traffic as well, not just quantity. So sure, there are ways to get hundreds of thousands of people to your website, but are they the right type of people? So when you focus on creating high quality content that speaks to your ideal client, and when it starts to get traction, like you have the right people showing up. Maybe the last thing that comes to mind is verifying that this topic that you might write about and spend 20 hours of your time on is something that people actually care about. So there's some great SEO tools out there to validate, what it is that users are actually going to Google for. So I use a kind of a fancy SEO tool called Ahrefs. There's another one called SEMrush, and there's a free one out there called Uber Suggest by Neil Patel. So if you want to start with a free tool, Neil Patel's Uber Suggest tool is probably a good place to start, but you can go there and type in Medicare IRMA, and it'll show you the different keywords associated with Medicare IRMA and what the search volume is. So, for me, the one that we ended up targeting was IRMA brackets 2024. So a lot of people in the current year are searching what are the Medicare IRMA brackets in 2024, and there's something like 10,000 people per month searching that keyword. So if there's 10,000 people per month searching that keyword, I'm happy to spend 20 hours of my time creating content, to answer that question and provide that resource. If there's 100 people per month, maybe it's something that I don't spend too much time on or I skip entirely. So doing that keyword research to verify exactly what people are going to Google to type is a really important step in that process.
Yeah. There's so many things that you just said that I want to circle back to.
Yeah.
I also agree. I love where SEO is at right now because it's so much less of like a factory churn of I just have to get content out and out and out. You really only need a handful of really high quality articles that are answering a really specific question for your ideal clients for SEO to work really, really well for you. And now it makes so much sense. I think that's the question I was trying to ask you. If you're not using social media, what's your top of funnel kind of strategy?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've just really honed in on SEO as your top of funnel, and it's working really, really, really well.
It has worked well. I think there's certainly other things we can be doing to amplify it. But again, like we only need one thing to start. I say like create one good funnel. So if I have SEO driving people to that blog post that are then opting into my newsletter, that are then subscribing to my podcast, and now I'm publishing high quality content on a regular basis, I'm building trust with them, and then periodically asking them to move to the bottom of my funnel, i.e. reach out and schedule an intro call with my firm. Like that funnel has been running for years now. And now it's pretty easy for me to copy and paste that funnel and start a new funnel, in a similar vein, but, slightly different, maybe a different top of funnel activity. So, you don't have to do a lot. Just do, one thing really well, and you can have a lot of success.
The other thing that I love to talk about besides SEO is email marketing.
Yeah.
And a lot of advisors don't do email marketing for so many different valid reasons.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk to you about your email marketing and what your strategy is for publishing weekly newsletters. If you could tell me a little bit about what goes into those newsletters every week, and then how often are you asking the people on your list to move to the bottom of the funnel, and I'll let you answer those, and then I'll have some follow-up questions.
Yeah, good questions. I was one of those people that didn't put a lot of attention into email marketing. Again, I can only do so much. So I spent my time building up the podcast and the podcast audience. It wasn't until I think 2 years ago where I'm like, okay, the podcast is going. We've got that systematized. What more can we be doing? And I really I wasn't getting fearful that like I would lose my podcast subscribers, but like I don't own that platform. I don't own like my audience there. And so I wanted to start to move my audience into an ecosystem that I had more control over. So that was kind of step one. I was like, can I move some of my podcast audience into my email list so I can better communicate with them there, more directly communicate with them there? So it really was 2 years ago where I really started to put a lot of time and attention into it. My strategy there is really, it's the same as the podcast, which is just give information away and nurture and build trust with people. My emails are mostly text-based. There are no images. It reads and looks like just an email that I would send directly to you. Very, very intentional. I think one of the mistakes people often make is just email newsletters are scattered with all this information, like updates on the firm and my family and like your favorite recipe and, here's this article and here's this blog. It's like, people don't have time to click through all these things and read every little thing. And it's just, I don't know, to me, I create content the way I want to consume it. And I'm sure there are some people that want to consume content that way. But for me, clean, simple, mostly text-based, really, really good copywriting, really easy to read and digest, especially on a mobile phone. And it really is intended just to nurture and build trust with people. I'll do one of four things when I create content for the newsletter. I'll either write something myself, something I'm really passionate about and really want to push out to my audience. Two, I'll lean on my good friend Ashby Daniels' email newsletter program called Money Visuals. So Ashby has a program called Money Visuals you can pay a monthly fee for, and it's basically a ghostwriting service for your emails. So every week he's got a memo that you can copy and paste and send via email to your clients. In a similar vein, Snappy Kraken I'll lean on as well. They've got some great emails. I can use in a similar fashion. And then Wendy Cook is another similar person who has a resource library that you can use as either inspiration or copy and paste as kind of a ghostwriting service to send to your clients. Now, I've talked about this on my podcast that I do not recommend ever just copying and even if a ghostwriting service that you're paying for, that you have permission to use that content, I still don't recommend just copying and pasting and sending it out to your audience. Every time I use one of Ashby's or Wendy's or Snappy's emails to send out, I probably spend at least 1 hour of my own time going through that email, rewording things, deleting things, adding things, changing things, adding some bullet points, making it more easily digestible and just more my style. So I think I've had success using those different, resources and platforms to help me create content because I spend my own time making it my own. I don't just lazily, hit copy and paste. So, those have been fantastic resources. Just help me, systematize this a little bit more. Again, I spend most of my time creating content, original content for the podcast. I just don't have the brain energy to also do the same thing for email. So it's been a really helpful way to create content for the email. In terms of asking my email list to move forward or kind of a call to action, what I've found that's worked really well for us is I really only have to do it once or twice per year. So, most of the time, let's call it, 50 weeks out of the year, I'm just sending what I think is really high quality information to build trust with them. 1 or 2 times during the year, I'll send a dedicated email to just prospects, so not clients. So I'll eliminate I'll eliminate clients from this specific email. It'll go directly to prospects on my email list, and it'll just lay out, as a reminder, here's who we do our best work with. If you're interested in working with our firm or exploring working with our firm, we offer a free retirement and tax analysis. Go here to learn more. It's a very direct email, and just doing that once or twice per year pretty much fills up our entire pipeline. That coupled with the CTAs on the podcast. So I just learned it doesn't have to be in every email. It doesn't have to be high frequency. If I built trust with these people and I hit them a couple of times per year, just remind them how to move forward if they're ready to move forward. It's been enough, for us. So I try to take, I don't want to call it like a passive approach, but I've just found that, I don't know, I guess back to just like quality over quantity. Like I don't have to hit them a bunch of times. Just, once or twice per year seems to work well for us.
One question I have about the Snappy Kraken or the Wendy or the Ashby content that you have, I kind of like that you have 3 to choose from, so that if like Snappy Kraken has one week that doesn't align with your ideal client, you have 2 other to choose from. That's a really smart strategy that I haven't heard people use before. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then the other question kind of related to that I wanted to ask you was, you've said you're very intentional with your SEO, that everything that you write about is targeted towards your ideal client. Is that the same for the email newsletter, or are you a little bit more relaxed with the email newsletter?
I'm not relaxed with anything. No, we can't be. I mean, I want to speak to our ideal client. Like we are an expert in serving one type of client with very specific pain points. Now, the email newsletter can get a little bit more broad just because, for example, Ashby's newsletter, Money Visuals, talks a lot about kind of behavioral finance and like staying the course, and not panicking and not being irrational with your investments. So, I mean, that message applies to just about any investor. Part of that hour that I spend making that email my own is changing things around from like, instead of financial plan, if he's referencing financial plan, I might call it a retirement plan. Or I might add in a couple sentences, an example of how we helped a client with something similar. So I'll work in, our niche into that email so that it speaks more to our audience. So again, sometimes the topics can get a little bit more broad. Maybe it's about inflation or general investment strategies, but I try to reword those things to make sure that they're fitting for our target demographic.
Okay. I'm so glad to hear you say that. Last thing I want to ask you, and then we can kind of wrap up. I would love for you to tell me more about your experiments in Advisor Marketing Podcast.
Sure. It's a podcast I started, I don't know, like 4 years ago now. I don't publish as frequently anymore. I don't have the time. I miss it. I'll publish a couple of new episodes per year. But back to our conversation about quality over quantity, downloads don't change. Like, if I publish an episode tomorrow, I'm gonna have the same amount of downloads as 2 years ago when I was publishing frequently. So you build up trust, you build up an audience, and they want to hear from you. So if they only hear from you a couple times per year, I think that they're still receptive to that and excited about it. So I started for a couple of reasons. One, I thought we were doing some cool things and having success with them, and I wanted to share it with other advisors. I don't know, I just had this like abundance mentality, and I couldn't figure out the best way to do it. I like had a blog that I was starting to like try to write these things out, and it was just taking too much time, and so I just like grabbed a microphone and decided to document it on the microphone, and it seemed to work much better for me. So it's really just documenting the different things that I'm doing or have done in my firm to grow, things that have worked and things that haven't worked, things that I've tested and experimented with in real time. I mentioned Snappy Kraken earlier. There's a couple of episodes on there where, right then and there, like I'm trying Snappy Kraken, I'm experimenting with it. I'm sharing the results. I'm sharing, the pros and cons. I mentioned Ashby Daniels and Money Visuals, same thing, sharing, how I've used it, lessons learned, who it's for, who it's not for. So really just kind of documenting the things that we're doing. And it's been it has been really helpful for me because it's held me accountable to doing these things, and it forces me to track certain things and think through different strategies and why something might have, failed and how I can make something better. And so I don't know, I've just really enjoyed, documenting these different things, and it's really helped me improve our own marketing efforts. And I've had a chance to connect with a lot of other advisors as a result. And so, yeah, I really hope to be able to pour more time and energy into it here in the near future.
Okay, well, I cannot wait to check it out. We'll link to it in the show notes, of course.
Awesome.
So my final question for you is, looking back over your past 10 years, if you could pull out one piece of advice that you could give to a new advisor, and it doesn't have to be just one piece of advice, but the thing that comes top of mind, they're diving into marketing for the very first time, what would you tell them?
I'm going to say two things. The first one, I mean, I guess they're both pretty traditional, but the first one, I don't know who could have changed my mind and how they could have said it differently, but the number one thing that changed our trajectory or my trajectory was getting really specific about who we're doing our best work for. I tried to reach everyone for too long, and it really hindered us from a marketing standpoint, from a growth standpoint, operation standpoint. So it wasn't until I finally got focused and said, here's exactly who we do our best work for: age 50 and over, $1 million or more, tax problems in retirement. I've always said if a 30-year-old with $50 million walked into our office, I wouldn't take them on as a client. I would go refer them to my friend down the street. It actually happened a few months ago. Didn't even blink an eye, referred them to my friend down the street. So that's how serious we got about getting narrow about our ideal client. And it's resulted in more business than we can keep up with. So that's the number one thing I would say. I know it's scary as hell to just zone in on one single type of person. But I promise you, it'll make everything so much easier. It'll make your marketing easier, what sort of content to produce. Your marketing will have a lot more success. The second thing I'd say in the marketing world is, this is scary and hard to do, but like you got to just put it out there and kind of let your freak flag fly. Like your first video, your first podcast episode, your first blog post, like it's going to suck, but like just be yourself and hit publish and put it out there and continue to iterate and improve and learn. You go back and look at anybody's first video. You go back and look at, Michael Kitz's first video, or my first podcast, or my first video. Someone like Gary Vee, who's popular in the marketing. Go look at his very first video with Wine Library and his dad. Like, they're terrible. Like all these, very first videos are terrible. And like yours is going to be terrible. Just own it. Have some fun with it. Don't try to be someone you're not. Be authentic and just like put yourself out there and just continue to iterate and improve. But I think too many of us, and myself included in the beginning, just like really reserved and like trying to say the right thing and not mess up. And like, it's like, no, just like be yourself. Just like whatever feels good to you. And maybe the last thing I'll say on that is, if you think you want to start a podcast and you go to like hit publish on your first podcast and you're like, that was hard, I hated it, I have a headache, like I'm tired, like I don't want to do that again, then don't do a podcast. Like, try those different things, like put yourself out there, and if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. You might find out that you're better on video, or you'd rather write, Again, it doesn't matter what the platform is, but it needs to feel good to you. You got to be able to like feel good about putting yourself out there.
such good pieces of advice. Let your freak flag fly. I think that's just such a great little nugget there. Absolutely. Well, Taylor, thank you so much. Where can people find you?
I think the best place is just taylorschulte.com. It pretty much covers everything from, my firm and the marketing stuff that I'm doing. So, yeah.
Okay. We'll link to everything in the show notes. Taylor, this has been such a fun conversation, and thank you to all of our listeners for sticking with us on the Finance Marketing Podcast.
Thanks so much, Hillary.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.